Hi again then, guys and gals, and so, as you saw from the title and the thumb, I bought a new car. My third car now. Some of you will immediately recognise what it is from the interior. It is, of course, a car that I've reviewed before. Not the exact same car, but I've reviewed this model before. Recently, in fact, I was going back and forth between two cars that I wanted to buy. Ultimately, I went for beauty over practicality this time, because obviously I had the Touareg V10 already, which is basically a sleeper. It's not as fast as it looks, but I wanted something that's a little bit more flash this time. Kind of like the Maserati, but without the drawbacks. Something far more reliable, way better fuel economy. And so this is, of course, it. And as some of you will have guessed, it is, of course, a Jaguar XKR. Now, in particular, this is the X150 generation. So it's a 57 plate, the later half of 2007. Some of you might be wondering, why did you go for this one instead of the 5 litre? Because this is the 4.2 in particular from that year. Well, the reason why is very simple. I've driven all 4 versions of the XK lineage from that time. The XK 4.2, the XK 5 litre, the XKR 4.2, and the XKR 5 litre. And of course, I haven't driven the XKRS or the XKRS GT yet, but those are kind of different things anyway, more hardcore. But of those 4, this one is my favourite. I actually find it more playful than the 5 litre. The difference in performance actually isn't that big. The 5 litre has like 80 horsepower more, 503 to this car's 420. But the difference in 0 to 60 is like 4.6 seconds instead of 4.9. So even if it turns out to be faster than that and there's a bigger difference, I don't really care, because 4.9 seconds is more than quick enough for my liking. It can exceed the speed limiter. It's like a 175 mile an hour car anyway. And I'm going to tell you a couple of the things that I loved about this one. Now, incidentally, this is not going to be a traditional review video, like a Beards and Cars thing. I mean, you can tell I don't have the Beards and Cars shirt on or anything. So what I want to run through in this video, as well as just announcing, the new car itself, is to actually discuss a couple of the things that I'm loving about it so far, and basically why I went for this one, what my other option was, and just basically an overview of the model. So if you want more of a traditional review of this car, or the same generation at least, but a silver one instead, then click the link below this video. I'll probably put an annotation up here as well, so that you can check it out. And I did a Beards and Cars road test review, but it was a silver one instead. But apart from that, it was the exact same model. Fantastic car. At the time, I wanted an XFR, which of course I also reviewed. That is still my car of the year. My favourite car that I've reviewed in the year. Absolutely outstanding car. Sounds incredible. That same 500 horsepower 5 litre engine that the newer XKR has. Incredible performance across the board. It's just really good. And I actually could have bought one of those for the same price that I paid for this. Like literally the same price. It would have also been black, which is what I wanted. It would have been the exact spec I wanted, which this one is. But the reason why I went against the XFR is because of what I said earlier on. I decided this time I wanted something that was more of a pure GT, even more of a pure exotic than the Maserati was actually, because even the Maserati had 4 doors. And even though I do like practicality, this has more than enough practicality for what I need. You've got the 2 rear seats if you need them, which I don't use them that often, but they're there if I need them, like for my nephews or whatever. There's actually a really good amount of trunk space. I've already done grocery shopping in this. You can get 6 heavily packed bags at least in the back. It's really good. I love the fact that it's a hatchback as well, which makes a massive difference. And in terms of what's impressed me the most so far, it's actually been the fuel economy. Now, some people doubted what I said about the fuel economy in my review of the Touareg V10. That was accurate. I did get about 28 to 30 to the gallon average out of that Touareg. But get this. This is the crazy thing. Now, feel free to correct my math here if I'm wrong, but as far as I can tell, this math is correct. So, I drove this car 147 miles home. Before leaving on that trip, I filled the tank. Now, I'm not talking about the cost of that. That's irrelevant. I'm just talking about miles per gallon. So I filled the tank 147 miles home. That trip took me exactly 1/4 of a tank. So 25% of that tank. That means that roughly, based on that quarter of a tank, if I completely emptied the tank, which of course you wouldn't do, but let's just say I did, that would give me a range of 588 miles. Now that is phenomenal. I mean, that alone for a GT is excellent. Especially given that this is a 70-litre tank, which, I mean, my Touareg has over 100 litres, I believe it is. It's at least a 100-litre tank. So this is way smaller, and yet the fuel range is almost the same. The best I've ever got out of the Touareg was, I think, 630 miles, which is still great for what it is for a V10 SUV. But my point is, if this can do 588 miles to a tank, if you convert that 70 litres, or whatever it is exactly, into UK gallons, that's 15.5. So if you divide the total estimated range that this can do based on the numbers that I did get, and then divide that by the gallons, that means that on the way home, I averaged a consistent 38 miles per gallon. 38 miles per gallon in a supercharged 420 horsepower, 175 mile an hour petrol GT car. That is remarkable. Now, I already decided that as long as the fuel economy on this was at least on par with the Touareg, I would be happy. You know, if I could average like 26, 28 overall, I'd be happy with that. I mean, this has got way more power, it's way faster, of course. The fact that it's so much better than the Touareg is remarkable. Because even though the tank is smaller, which means that technically I would probably have to fill up maybe just a fraction more regularly than the Touareg, but not that much more regularly, maybe 50 miles difference between the two. But the biggest difference is the cost. Because here in the UK, petrol is cheaper than diesel per litre, so that's immediately cheaper, but also the tank is cheaper to fill. So even though I have to go slightly more regularly, overall, I mean over the course of a year, there's a pretty strong chance this could be significantly cheaper to run than the Touareg. And that is really impressive to me, that a Jaguar GT car like this can do that kind of economy. That's insane, because that even goes higher than what they say it can do. Jaguar says that this averages 25 to the gallon and can reach a peak of 34 on the highway. Now those numbers are great. The fact that I got 38 is insane, and I think I know part of the reason why. I drove on cruise control the whole way back, basically. I mean, with some exceptions, obviously, but I stuck to 65 miles an hour because I wanted to test how good the economy could be, because that's the speed that's best for the Touareg. And obviously, the simple rule of thumb for economy is have your revs as low as you can go without stalling. The lower the revs, the less the fuel you use. So with that in mind, basically I put on the cruise control, and incidentally I love the cruise control in this car. In the Touareg, the cruise control is basically just on or off, which is good enough, you know, it does the job. And you can adjust it up or down, of course. But in the Jag, it has adaptive cruise control. Now, it only accelerates up to the speed that you tell it to, so in my case 65, but then it will brake and back off the car in front to maintain a safe distance. That is really cool. Now, I know for a lot of people that won't matter, but I haven't used a system like that in my own car before. The Touareg is a year older than this, and it feels so primitive in comparison. Now, in terms of what I love about the rest of the car, of course the performance is fantastic. I already talked about the raw numbers. It feels great in practice. And one of the things that I love about this, significantly more in fact than the Maserati, is the torque. See, the Maserati had a really nice, you know, high performance engine. It's built by Ferrari. It's the same base engine that they used in the F430 in a lower state of tune, essentially, but it's all power. There's no torque in that engine. It's got like 310 pound-feet or something. I'm pretty sure this Jag has something like 410 pound-feet of torque. It's something like that. It's pretty close to what the power is. Now, of course, that's nowhere near the torque of the Touareg, but at the same time, this weighs a full metric ton less than the Touareg. The Touareg weighs 2.7 tons. This weighs 1.7, technically 1,665 kilos, and the main reason why is the all-aluminium body, which is crazy because when I park this next to my Touareg, and I might even put a photo of this, you know, maybe if I can be bothered, this is bigger than the Touareg. This Jaguar is longer and wider than the Touareg V10 is. Now, of course, it's nowhere near as high, but the fact that it's lighter despite having a bigger floor area is pretty impressive, and it's a testament to the aluminium body. And you can see the difference the aluminium makes if you look at, for instance, the XJ. If you consider the earlier 2000s XJ, like the 2004, 2005, compare that to the 90s one, when they, I believe, introduced the aluminium body, if I'm not mistaken. Look at the difference in weight. The 90s one weighs like 2.3 tons. The aluminium one weighs 1.7. It's literally 500 kilos lighter just because they made it have an aluminium body instead. Now, I could be wrong there, but I believe that was the case. In the case of this Jag, it's remarkable that it weighs 1,665 kilos. That's lighter than an SLR McLaren. And for a car of this size, that's really impressive, especially given that that car costs quite a bit more, has a full carbon fiber body. The engine in the Mercedes isn't that much bigger than this anyway, you know, physically speaking. So, I mean, across the board, I'm really impressed with this. I'm loving it so far. Of course, any car can have its issues. I haven't had any issues in this one yet, but of course I expect to have issues at a certain point, because that's just part of motoring. You can buy a brand new car and it can break down or be under par. Just ask McLaren. But as far as cars that I've owned, this is definitely better than the Maserati. That's for sure. It was more expensive than the Maserati, but still an amazing price for what it is. Maybe in future I might get an XFR, you know, who knows. But like I said, I wanted to go away from the sleeper world for a while. I've enjoyed the sleeper life, but I wanted something with a little bit more, you know, pizzazz to it. And I think the Jag XKR definitely has that. Of course, a while back when I reviewed the XK, the 300 horsepower model, again, that'll be here on screen if you want to watch that one. Click on that link just here. I said that that one was my favourite at the time. It was my favourite until I drove this one, because the price difference is not that massive if you think about it. You can buy one of those XKs for like 6,000 to 9,000, depending on the year, the mileage. This one you can buy for anything from like 10 to 15, again, depending on the mileage. And then you can go to the 5 litre, which of course is more expensive. So the price difference isn't that crazy between the two. And considering how much more you get, I mean, this has 120 horsepower more, 0 to 60 is over a second quicker, top speed is like, I don't know, 20 miles an hour higher, and the fuel economy is the same. That's the crazy thing, because the normal XK has really good economy, but it's naturally aspirated. And even though you might not realise this, having the supercharger actually makes this car more economical, because turbochargers and superchargers are actually more efficient. The only reason why most people don't get more efficiency is because they floor it everywhere. Now, of course, that's what the manufacturer intends you to do, to use that power. And I know it's kind of odd for somebody who's my age, you know, 26, buying a Jag XKR and then trying to get the best fuel economy out of it. It seems a bit weird, like I'm an old man in a young man's body. But to me, I actually find it more impressive if you can have a car that is this gorgeous, this fast, and this powerful, that can still average, again, 38 miles per gallon, which is insane. Well, that impresses me more than if this did like 20 to the gallon. Because anyone can make a car that will do that. It takes far better engineering and aerodynamics, etc., to make a car that can do more than that. Again, massive step up even from the Maserati. That did like 22 to the gallon. I think that's the highest I ever got out of it, which is the worst of all 3 cars I've owned so far. So, I mean, it seems kind of ironic that this is the fastest car I've owned, but it's also the most economical car I've owned, which is pretty amazing. I mean, it really is best of both worlds. In terms of, you know, whether or not I'd recommend one, well, I think that speaks for itself. You know, if I talk about a car and say that I like it, that's one thing. If I then buy that car or one like it, to me that says a lot as well. My love for the XFR hasn't gone. I still adore that car. And if you are on the market for a 4-door high-performance car and you don't want an M5, definitely look at the Jag. To be honest, even if you're looking at a BMW M5, take a look at an XFR. It will probably win you over. It's just pure British muscle, which is exactly what this is as well. And I absolutely love this car. As I said, anything can happen in future, but for now, I'm really enjoying it. I'm very happy I bought it. I was umming and ahhing back and forth between the 2-door, the 4-door, XFR, but I'm happy with my decision. Ultimately, that's it for this update. Of course, check out that full review if you want the more academic and, you know, technical side of this thing, where I'm talking about, you know, using it in daily life. This video is more just like a vlog, almost like a personal update, because I know you guys like to see the Maserati and Touareg related stuff. So now we've got the Jag stuff. And also, last but not least, I was also thinking of buying a Stage 3 Spires exhaust for this one. Active exhaust with the open close valves, or a straight through system. The straight through is much louder, still fully legal, and it doesn't have the valves, so it's just loud all the time. That's the one I was going to get, but it's £2,500. That is a hell of a lot of money just to make something sound nice. And although I'm not against the idea, I'm just not fully into the idea of, spending that kind of money just for an exhaust. So I actually found that there's a simpler way of making the Jag sound better, which is in between the rear seats, you've got a fuse box, and there's a fuse in there called fuse 19. And if you remove that fuse, it permanently opens the valves in the exhaust so it sounds louder all the time. I was planning on doing that, but when I went to buy this car, they'd already done that. It already had fuse 19 removed, which was awesome. I was so happy to hear that, because it saves me a bit of work, potentially damaging the rear seat, so I'm glad I don't have to do that. And it sounds incredible. I mean, you'll have heard the revving at the start of the video. You'll probably hear some as we're driving as well. The only critique I have for Jaguar when it comes to this car is I wish you could hear the sound more in the cabin, because you can hear that rumble, but I get the distinct impression that most of the noise is happening behind the car, which of course is what you'd expect, but those of you who have driven fast cars will know there are certain cars where you can hear more of it inside, and it's a testament to the soundproofing. It's very well done, but I just wish it was a little bit more raw inside the cabin. Overall, though, it sounds incredible. I'm already getting, people looking at it, complimenting it, saying it's a stunning car, because it is. And as far as I'm concerned, again, for the people who ask why I prefer the 4.2 over the 5 litre, the reason why is very simple. If you drive them both, you might disagree with me, but in my opinion, the 4.2 litre feels like the Jaguar equivalent of an Aston Martin. The 5 litre feels like the Jaguar equivalent of a Bentley. Neither of those are a bad thing, but it depends what you want. The Bentley is much more restrained, a lot quieter than I thought, and that's the 5 litre. So if that's what you want, then go for it. For me, I wanted something more like that Aston vibe. Louder, more raw, more playful, and I also happen to prefer the look of this one as well. I like the look of the 4.2 instead of the 5 litre overall anyway. So for me, it's just a perfect choice. And yeah, that's it overall for my thoughts. Thanks for watching. And yeah, if you're in the market for one, get yourself an XK or an XKR. This one's got a great history. It's clearly been loved. Perfect spec. I was originally thinking about changing the wood veneers, but I think I might actually leave them. I like it. I specifically wanted black with the 10-spoke rims, and ideally, well, either a black or cream interior. This has black with cream and wood, so it's perfect. But yeah, absolutely love it. I've said I'm ending the video about 5 or 6 times so far, but now I really am. So thanks for joining me. Of course, stick around on the channel for more vids. Doubtless I'll be doing them. And of course, for more beards and cars road test reviews as well. But until next time, I'll see you then. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.